Hi everyone, this is Kevin from the Climbing Flow podcast, and today's guest is Robbie Phillips. I had a really nice long chat with him. It did go on for 2.5 hours, so instead of making one episode, we'll make it two parts. So you'll get to listen to part one now, and part two will be released next week. So I'll let you listen and hope you enjoy. So this is the 20th episode for the Climbing Flow podcast, and today's guest is Robbie Phillips. Robbie's climbed some hard E10 trad and some Sport 8C plus on sites E7 regularly, and seems to have taken a liking to adventure climbing, whether that's big walling in Chile, climbing scary crumbly troughs in Orkney, or some first descents in Scotland. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. So, um, when did your climbing journey start?
I started climbing when I was 15. I, uh, I actually started through the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Yeah, I just remember going into a wee library in my school, looking through the list of sports that I could do as part of the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and one of them was rock climbing. Went down to this little bouldering wall in the centre of Edinburgh, and went up to the guy at the reception, asked if he could just sign my book once a week. I went for 3 months, absolutely loved it, and at the end of it was really sad that it was over. And he went, "Well, you don't have to stop. You do realize that?" And I was like, "All right, cool." So I kept doing it.
Yeah. So what was it about climbing that you liked?
Um, Honestly, it was probably the sort of community. I think as a kid, I really struggled sort of socially. Um, I just didn't really have friends at school. Kind of kept myself to myself, kind of sort of thing. I just didn't, yeah, just didn't vibe with people really. Didn't have many like-minded people at my school. So when I found climbing, I was mixing with like a variety of different people from different backgrounds, different ages, like not really kids to be honest,
Yeah.
mostly adults, students and adults, and and everyone just liked me for who I was, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
it was
got hooked.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, I think climbing community is quite a mix of people, isn't it? I think,
yeah,
yeah, I think that the way that I kind of describe it, or the way, that, although it might be changing now, is that it seems to be like society's outcasts, um, quite nerdy people, and seem to just get together and quite kind of, yeah, have something in common, right? Climbing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I mean, like, I think that it's ch really changed now. Like, I mean, like climbing, back when I was saying back then, I was 2005.
Yeah.
So, like, although like climbing walls were around, it hadn't blown up to the same extent it has now. And climbing walls were really different. You know, they weren't like these big, massive centers, with like big volumes
Yeah.
and it being really colorful. I mean, this climbing center I started in was like a wee industrial unit, like with just plywood boards, very schoolroom-esque,
Yeah.
and lots of guys with their tops off screaming in the court, like lots of
Yeah.
campus board action, like people, like yeah, I'd say there was definitely a lot more guys than girls.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was just a very different sort of scene. Now, when you go to the climbing wall, like I love climbing in Edinburgh. We've got like loads of really good climbing walls now, actually.
Yeah.
The climbing hangar is one of the ones I go to kind of most regularly, and it's like definitely like very 50-50 girls and guys.
Yeah.
Lots of young people, lots of new climbers. Most people, to be honest, 50% of the people there are going around with like the sort of rental shoes on, but they've been climbing for already like 3 to 6 months. They're regulars there,
Yeah.
and it's just and they're kind of more like they're kind of just like I don't know, like a new wave of climbers who are just indoor climbers. They're
Yeah.
just they're not necessarily interested in outdoors. They just love going to the wall, and that's
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of their sort of social scene, really. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think like I guess when I started climbing in what was it, 96 or 97? It was like the old resin, like super heavy resin holds and wooden shaped holds that somebody made in their backyard and stuff. And
Mhm,
um, I think root setting at the time was maybe not really that existent. It was just people just chucking holes on the wall,
mhm.
um, and some fiberglass walls as well. Yeah, and that's changed. I think, like I was told, climbing is one of the fastest growing sports at the moment.
Yeah, I heard a statistic that a number of years ago that it was the fastest growing sport, that it had overtaken skateboarding as the fastest growing sport. And this is quite a while ago, actually, still.
Okay.
Um, yeah, before the Olympics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely believe that. Looking
Yeah.
at the number of people that you see at the climbing wall, I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a nice social scene, isn't it? It's a nice social scene, and then you do some exercise at the same time, and I think it's just so much nicer than going to like a gym and just pumping weights, where it's all yeah, you're just there by yourself,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
in your own little world. Um, so you got into competing,
Yeah, I mean, I think like as most young people who live in a city not near rocks
yeah,
finds, if you've got if you're gonna struggle to like get outside or go to try something challenging on a rock face, you're gonna stay indoors. And of course, the next challenge when you're indoors is like the sort of competitions.
yeah,
I was probably first introduced to competitions through sort of like little winter bouldering leagues, but very quickly got invited onto the sort of local competition team at the climbing wall, and
yeah,
then got introduced to the the BMC's like youth climbing series, the YCS, which I
okay,
think was called Bricks at the time.
yeah,
And I sort of did one season of that, and then did like the sort of nationals, and then got onto the GB team. Was in the GB team for a year, and that was a really nice experience. Got to do some of the World Cups and that sort of thing. I did
okay,
absolutely terrible in them, but it was fun. It was like a nice experience.
yeah.
You know, and I think ultimately, competitions weren't my thing. Like I wasn't good at competitions,
Why is
but it
that?
was something. I definitely got very nervous.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
struggled with the sort of mental side of competitions.
yeah,
I mean, as a kid, I was like, I've always been very driven. But I think with competitions, and actually, to be honest, in climbing as well, at the early stages, struggled to separate sort of like what I wanted for myself versus how other people maybe perceived me. And as I guess you could actually say, from someone who as a youngster didn't have many friends, struggled to like fit in, and then as you kind of you find yourself fitting in, and all of a sudden you've got your something you find you're actually not that bad at this thing.
yeah,
You want to be seen to be doing well within that community, and
yeah,
then you then put more pressure on yourself to perform, to do well. And then if you don't do as well as you'd hoped, and then you think how other people perceive that. I found that really difficult, and I found like competitions, like everyone's watching you, and if I didn't do as well as I'd hoped, then I'd always feel like I was a bit of a letdown.
yeah,
And
yeah,
of
yeah,
course that built up and created some quite negative emotions, and that meant it was even harder to perform.
yeah,
Interestingly enough, the best I ever did in a competition, had a, it was like just after I'd left the British team,
yeah,
and I decided I wasn't going to compete anymore. I was going to route set, and I was route setting for World Cups. I was route setting for European competitions, and I'd been asked to route set for the national championships in the UK.
yeah,
And I was really excited about doing this. And then I got invited on a sort of a work trip, coaching in Kalymnos. And I thought, oh, that sounds way better than route setting for the
yeah,
national championships. So, I just said, actually, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'll just go and do this thing in Kalymnos.
yeah,
And then the Kalymnos, and then, well, long story short, my dad got quite ill, and I had to go and come back home. I couldn't go to Kalymnos, and it ended up seeing an opening to go and compete in the national championships because I couldn't route set for it. So I thought, oh, well, if I'm not route setting for it, I might as well go for it. So I went in for it, no expectations,
yeah,
and ended up like um, drawing in the finals, first place with Ed Hamer, on countback, I was second, and I was competing against the best climbers in the UK at the time, and there was some international climbers, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, it's
Yeah.
like I wasn't even particularly like didn't really particularly want it, and
Yeah.
that might have been actually the thing that actually helped me in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I guess no expectations, I guess, or means no pressure. It means you're just there to have a bit of fun.
Mhm.
And I guess you must have just been climbing a lot more relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I was climbing relaxed, but I found a wee trick uh, I've used extensively throughout my entire climbing career,
Okay.
a sort of wee mental trick, I should say, where when I go out to try a climb, I just say, "Y- just try your best, try your hardest."
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really simple,
Yeah.
right? But I realized a long time ago that if I if I came off a climb realizing that I hadn't tried the best that I could give,
Yeah.
then I would be more disappointed in myself,
Yeah.
you know? So if I fall off going for it, like giving 100%,
Yeah.
then I can never really be that disappointed
Yeah.
because, well, you left everything on the wall. So that
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah. But that's an incredible trick to do, right? I guess if you looked at if you looked at everyone that climbed a high level in climbing, I think what a lot of people have in common is the ability to try hard and give it everything they've got.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's I guess that's an incredible thing to have gotten to and realized. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it's interesting, like saying trying hard. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's definitely people that struggle with turning that on sometimes. It's not necessarily just maybe they can try hard, but then they're still disappointed with themselves afterwards.
yeah.
There's
But
still.
that might be more to do with focusing on the end goal
Hmm,
and
hmm.
not really on the process.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know that sounds
exactly.
really cheesy, but I guess like you saying, if you're giving it everything you've got in the moment and you lay it all out there and you fall off at any given point, then how can you be disappointed when you've given it all you had at that time?
Exactly. No, that's 100% it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was on a Spain trip a couple of years ago, and it was a really, really good trip. It was probably one of my better sport climbing trips I've done.
Yeah,
And I remember going out there, and I just said I had no particular goals. I just said everything I want to try, everything I'm going to get on, I'm going to try really flipping hard,
yeah,
and I don't actually care about the outcome.
yeah,
I'm not I'm not going out there to climb a new grade or send. I'm just going out there to climb
yeah,
because climbing is what I enjoy, and I enjoy trying hard.
yeah,
And if I do that, then it'll be a great trip,
yeah,
and it's probably one of my most successful trips ever. I just climbed numerous, routes up to 8C plus, and I was feeling like on top form by the end of the trip. Yeah, it
yeah.
was great.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. But it's a skill, isn't it? It's a skill. It is one building that awareness because I think you can see a lot of climbers climbing, and I personally think you can see when you watch climbers climb, you can see when somebody gives up in the moment, and you can see when
Mhm.
somebody's giving it everything they've got. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think like it's really building that awareness of where are you at and how honest are you going to be with yourself? Are you just letting go? Um, or are you actually just trying, just barely holding on and just making that even that one extra move?
yeah, no, exactly. And it's something I used to coach a lot of kids. I was the Scottish head team coach for the youth climbers, and it was something that I instilled in them. I remember getting ridiculed by another coach because I brought like some lessons from that I'd learned in Spain.
Yeah,
Um, I would say to the kids, "A muerte," because "a muerte" is a word or a phrase they use in Spain, which means until the death,
yeah,
And I didn't want to say until the death to children,
yeah,
but if I said "a muerte" in another language, it was kind of funny, and they were all like, yeah, yeah, I'm worthy,
Yeah.
try your hardest.
Yeah.
And all the kids I coached were just running around the climbing wall or the competitions going, I'm worthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and it was great, and they always gave their best. They left nothing on the wall, and that was all I wanted to see, really.
Yeah. And I bet they were absolutely buzzing afterwards, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, generally speaking, with kids it's always tricky because there's so much stuff going on, and
Yeah.
maybe they don't have sort of adult mentality to kind of reflect and see things. Some of them do. Some kids mature at different ages,
Yeah.
so it's just being patient with them. But I always felt like if I made things like fun for them rather than serious,
Yeah.
and tried to teach them that mental approach
Yeah.
in a fun way, then it would help.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I guess the kids look up to you as well, right? Because you climb a high level, and they're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Let's listen to what he says.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a real skill, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
a skill. Um, so I guess apart from like trying your hardest, what other skills did you learn in competing that you transfer into your sport or trad?
Um, from the competition side of things, I guess, yeah, competitions are very much, you know, there's no second try.
Yeah,
It's, you arrive at the wall, you've got a time slot to kind of to do the job,
yeah,
and then leading up to that, it's just like, getting you're getting warmed up, getting prepped, getting ready to like try your absolute hardest in one moment. So I guess like firstly, I think I learned, I guess, quite just some strategies to warm up the body without actually having to necessarily, get on a rope, or do anything kind of very extensive on a wall, so that by the time I'm ready to perform, I can just get on the wall and go for it. I think in competitions you need to do that. And similarly, if I'm outdoors at crags, maybe there's not the perfect warm up route right
yeah,
next to you. Maybe maybe there's no routes. Maybe it's literally you just arrived at the base of a crag and there's just one really hard route, and you've just got to like warm up at the base of the rock, and that's what you got. So I think I did learn some strategies for that. I mean, ultimately, as I said, competitions, you've got that one shot. And again, I guess it all reflects back to that sort of try your hardest, but like I learned, I guess, how to just perform in the moment.
yeah,
Um, you got to do it now, and you got to do it, but I guess the thing with outdoors is there's always another shot. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
pressure isn't as high, but that's not always the case. And I can reflect on, we mentioned Orkney earlier. I can reflect on that as a good example. We did this big multi-pitch route called the Long Hope. It was, first free climbed by Dave McLeod, and it's arguably, yeah, the UK's hardest multi-pitch rock route.
yeah,
It's got like a sort of 8B, 8B plus trad pitch as a final pitch. After a full day of climbing up Chaucy sandstone, you've then got to perform at the very end. And just with the nature of the climbing, it takes a very long time to climb to get up to that point. And when me and my partner arrived, we realized we were probably going to have one shot each, and that was it.
yeah,
And I was going first, and I knew if I uh, if I don't if I don't perform right now, that's it. It's done.
yeah,
And we're probably not going to have another chance at doing this, realistically. But one thing I just kept on saying to myself throughout the entire day was, it's just a practice run. And well, I didn't say it to myself, me and my partner Alex, we said, oh, it's just a practice run. We'll come back another day. We'll come back another day, it'll be fine.
yeah,
But actually, we knew that wasn't the case, but it was something we told ourselves,
yeah,
just because it allowed us to kind of relax ourselves up until that last point. And then when it actually, I actually remember, and there's a film about this on my YouTube channel. When I get to the sort of crux of the whole route, it's this sort of probably about font 7B plus boulder problem, about 20, 30 meters up the route. You've done maybe two crux sections already, and you've actually still got another 30 meters after this crux to get to the top of the wall with some tricky climbing. So it's not over, but you know that this crux is like the hard bit, and if you get through this, your chances of completing it are like really high. And I was on this like sort of like kind of slopey sandstone jug, smearing my feet on these kind of little gritty sandstone smears, and I just was breathing, and I was looking up at the wall, and I just said, just try your hardest, just try your hardest. And I said it out loud. I say it out loud to myself often in these moments, these sort of little breaks,
Yeah,
and before the time I have to do it, I don't just think it, I say it,
yeah,
and that kind of actioned that mentality that you just, probably my French, but you just fucking try. You know what I mean? You just
yeah,
try really hard, and then I don't actually remember anything after I left the rest. I remember nothing. I was just moving, and I grabbed the final jug in the last movement, and I screamed "fuck" just really, really loud because I had no idea what just happened, and somehow I was holding onto this jug. It was done, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
that was just such a magic moment, so special.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess by repeating the words "try your hardest," you're convincing your brain that that's what it needs to do, but you're also distracting the thinking part of your brain to not think about anything else.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think we all like to think we can think of more than one thing at a time, but we can't.
Yeah, yeah,
Thinking,
no, that.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's right. So it's just the thinking part just thinks of one thing. We can think of multiple things, but it usually switches between one and the other. But if you keep saying it and saying it out loud, then that becomes your focus. Yeah. And then
Yeah, no,
it's,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And then I guess like third thing that came from competitions was training, really. You know, you have you know when you're gonna go. You got the competitions. You got to train for them. You got to build up, and you know, and so essentially I learned how to train. I don't necessarily think that I always do it in like the best way possible, but I definitely understood the importance of training
yeah,
and preparing for your goals.
yeah,
And I've always applied that to everything I've done in climbing.
yeah. I guess it's consistency, isn't it? It's
Hmm.
even on the days when you don't feel it, it's just you get up and just do what you need to do.
Well, maybe that's weird because I always feel it. Yeah.
You always
I
feel what?
flipping. Well, you said when you don't feel it. I mean, I always feel it. I love training.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love,
Me
I
too.
love, I
Yeah,
love going climbing. I
yeah,
mean, it's rare. It's it's extremely rare that I'm like not psyched to go to the wall.
yeah,
It is my happy place,
yeah,
and I guess that, again, that's one thing I've often reflected on as well. Is I've had many um, sort of I've taken many paths in climbing. And you said competitions. Competitions for me are such a like another life. I feel
yeah,
like I've done so much since then. Um, but that was like a really important stage. And when I left competitions, I was sport climber, and I was really driven on sport climbing goals. And
yeah,
then at about 24, I got kind of introduced to sort of traditional climbing, and then multi-pitch climbing really took my fancy, and that's when I went and did that sort of stuff. And kind of like the multi-pitch was what I really loved to do in big alpine rock routes in the European Alps or in Patagonia and that sort of thing. And then I guess over the last sort of like 5 years, I've kind of again come back to my roots in Scotland, and I just love going out doing routes well, just going out and doing hard trad in Scotland, and more exploring more of the kind of more remote areas.
yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing about climbing. And again, like I often reflect on like what am I? What is my what as a climber? What do I do? I can't really distinguish any singular thing. I'm just a
Just climb.
climber, and like honestly, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I think I'm all adventured out. I just want to go moonboarding,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And at the moment I'm in that stage. Like I'm like I'm like loving going to try go to the moonboard at the climbing hangar.
yeah,
And I've been doing routes at Ratho with a mate of mine, I'm just excited about going back to Rathlo, the big root centre in Edinburgh, to go and try like the 8B, indoor route.
Yeah,
And it's funny. I get almost as much. I mean, I do get as much satisfaction from doing that as I do any other aspect of climbing.
yeah,
I mean, I'll get to a stage where I'm like, actually, I just want to go out now. But at this stage, I'm like, actually, going outside is not a big deal for me. I'm quite happy just to like go to the wall.
yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe it's an addiction, Robbie.
Yeah, yeah. I think generally a positive one, though, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I was making a joke,
No,
teasing.
no, I know, I know, I know,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
So you were talking about being adventured out. So I did watch the video that you made on the Long Hope. I guess did you first try it with Emma?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, I can't even remember whose idea it was. I think it might have been Emma's actually.
yeah,
Um, and um, yeah, me and Emma went up the year before, and we got to a point. So the bottom line is, I'm a very much a naturalist, and I love animals. And we shared the wall with these wonderful birds called fulmars.
yeah,
Fulmars are really infamous in the sort of climbing scene because you get them on sea cliffs, and they have this rather unfortunate defense mechanism where they spit putrid acidic vomit at any climber that kind of comes near them. And it really, climbers, I mean, to be honest, you should say you either love them or you hate them. Most climbers absolutely hate them, but I developed a real soft spot for them. And when me and Emma went up to climb the Long Hope, we didn't realize it at the time, but they had actually started nesting. And so whilst we were up there, there was kind of eggs on their nests. They're not really nests; they're just kind of like little rock ledges, and they just kind of like lay an egg there and sit with their egg.
yeah,
Um, but we were able to avoid them for the most part because we were just working at crux pitch, which is the top pitch. But when we started climbing from the bottom, it was impossible to avoid the nests. And we got to this point where we were literally like two pitches from the crux, and there was a line of fulmars along this horizontal break, which I would have been it would have been absolutely impossible to get round them.
yeah,
And I was actually leading, and I just said to Emma, I was like, I don't really want to, barge through these nests. And she was saying like, yeah, you're totally right there. And we just decided in that moment just to call it a day.
yeah,
So we had some static rope fixed that we used to absolute down, and we just Gmr'd out, and we caught, and that was it. That was the end of the trip.
yeah,
And Emma said to me that she would go back for the top pitch because it was such a good pitch, but she wouldn't want to do the bottom section again because it was so horrible.
right,
And I was really keen to try and go from the bottom and do like a full ascent.
yeah,
So I teamed up like the year after with my mate Alex, who've actually just been away in Norway with just there. And then me and Alex went back and did it together.
yeah.
That's what the film's about, yeah.
Okay. So you talk about the first part of the climb being horrible. So I guess having watched the video, I can see why, but maybe you could explain, I guess, why the video was so horrible. Sorry, why the sorry first pitches up to the
Yeah.
was so horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the type of sandstone. It's very, very soft. So, the first, I'd say, two pitches, which are quite long, they're just incredibly soft sandstone, like the softest sandstone you can imagine. So soft that you literally take a finger and, like, if you pushed hard enough against a rock, you'd create a line. So, you're kind of having to maneuver around sometimes these big hollow flakes that are just barely attached to the wall. There's a couple of sections where you have to commit your body weight to them and just do the move.
Yeah,
Um, and if the hold was to break, it'd be such severe consequences. So you've got to just commit to it and do it.
yeah,
Once you do it, you're fine. So it's all good. And then you go through another section of ledgy kind of like maneuvering, and then you might get to another section. It's kind of like that. I mean, then you get to like this huge big grassy pitch, which is kind of like it's kind of fine. And we called it HVG, hard, very grassy. And and then ultimately you get up to better quality rock, but then again patches of poor in between the better stuff.
Yeah.
There's a pitch called what was it called again? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's the Vile Corner. I think that's maybe what it's called. It's just this huge big corner and this big sort of chimney feature that's just covered in green slime. And luckily, I found a way of kind of staying more on the outside of it to avoid most of the slime.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of climbing that it's not it's not necessarily type one fun. It's like more fun after you've done it, and you're like, oh, that was a good adventure, but I don't
Yeah.
particularly want to do it again.
Yeah.
And again, that's what Emma and me and Emma had done it together. We did it ground up on site, going through all that stuff, and she was like, I don't really want to do that again because she knows herself, you
Yeah.
know. And I think I've always really respected that about Emma, and I think that's the one thing about me is I can't. I'm like a dog with a bone. I can't like not have it, you
Yeah.
know. So maybe that's more a weakness in myself.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I just I personally just wanted to go back for it. I mean, after you've done that lower section, again, the rock quality is not the best, but it does improve, and then eventually you get to this absolutely incredible 60-meter 8B pitch. Again, it's not necessarily that bold. It's got like some small gear, some tricky sections, maybe some boulder sections, but because it's so massive, if you do take a fall, there's nothing to hit. You're just going to take a big winger into space,
Yeah.
and it's the most exposed section of the entire wall. It's
Yeah.
actually unbelievably remarkable that um, you know that it climbs, and it's just the most incredible experience you can have in the UK, really on a big sea cliff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
It
that,
sounds,
that's what you're climbing towards.
yeah, but it sounds, I guess, quite intense and quite stressful climbing all that choss up to the good section.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what I found is it's it's not just scary in the moment, but when you're doing it, you don't realize it at the time, but it's really draining you of
Yeah.
energy, of mental energy and of that psyche that you really want to
Yeah.
have when you arrive at that top pitch. One thing I noticed was we arrived at the penultimate pitch, and Alex was leading up to the final pitch, and I started belaying him, and I remember looking down at the sea absolutely exhausted, mentally drained, and I was watching the white water of the sea just crashing against the rocks and creating these little white swirling vortexes. And I was just lulling myself to sleep. I closed my eyes and I was just belaying with my eyes shut.
Yeah.
And I think for maybe a moment, it was like, for a moment I might have nodded off and then felt the tug of the rope and then kind of like woke up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I am going to have to climb, a flipping E9, E10 pitch in the next sort of 30 minutes. How the hell is this going to work?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I watched the video of you doing it, it almost looked like there were sections where uh, you looked shell-shocked. You looked kind of completely drained of all energy and psyche, and then had to dig deep to do the last bit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And actually, I mean, I do think that I am a pretty hardy individual for these sorts of things, probably more so than
Yeah.
a lot of climbers. I think that I'm someone who does do well in those situations. I've found over the years doing big walls that when things are really tough and you're exhausted, I do have something inside that I can kind of turn on, almost like a sort of extra wee spark or ignition that just puts me into gear, and I can press on. I can
Yeah.
I can I can go for like days without good sleep and continue to perform at like pretty high level.
Yeah.
Um, even actually, funny enough, even when route setting back in the day, before I did any of this stuff, we used to set for World Cup events in Ratho in Edinburgh. we'd do these huge shifts all week setting, and then the qualifiers would happen, and then after the qualifiers, we'd be at the climbing gym until 4, 5 in the morning, setting and testing the finals.
Yeah.
And I can remember this one time I was with Gaz Parry, and he was route setting with me, and he was belaying me on an 8C at 5 in the morning, that a final for one of the categories, that
Yeah.
I almost climbed. I almost did it. Like, I fell off right at the very end,
Yeah.
but I did pretty much as well as any of the competitors.
Yeah.
And 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 he was like, "It's 5 in the freaking morning." It's like, and you've had an insane week, and I'm like, I know. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can perform when I'm pretty exhausted, and it seems to be like one of these things that's really helped me. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the big
Cool.
hard routes.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. No idea. No idea what that would be. Yeah. That just sounds incredible, right? To be able to work hard when, yeah, lack of sleep, lack of work. But I must say, like route setting, I've done a bit of route setting, and I know quite a lot of friends of mine route set, and it's like grafting. It's physically demanding job. Yeah. It's
It's
like
it's why I don't do it anymore.
yeah, it's like working on a
Yeah,
building site, but you're on ropes,
yeah,
and from the moment you start to the moment you stop at the end of the day, you're just like grafting.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I feel respect to everyone who's a route setter, because I got to a point where I was like, I just can't continue to do this and perform and train to the level I want.
yeah,
Um, it wasn't worth it for me anymore, and
yeah,
that's why I don't do it. Um, but yeah, it actually, again, I think it was very good for a time.
yeah. But th this is why, like, when I look at Emma, um, she's she's quite a small-framed person, and she does a lot of setting, and she performs at a high level, and not trying to sound sexist, and she's a woman. Like I think as men, we generally have more muscle mass. So I guess when it comes to grafting, that might be slightly easier for us. Um, but yeah, I do look at them and think, okay, bloody hell, yeah, you can set and you can perform at a high level, and take my hat off to for doing that.
No, yeah, well, I mean, have I actually ever done any of Emma's routes? I don't think I've ever done any of Emma's routes, but like I like the best route setters I know are all female.
Okay.
Um, that they're yeah, my one of my best friends, Jess. She's head setter in Edinburgh at Ratho Climbing Centre.
Yeah.
She's set with me for years. She's absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible.
So why do you
She
why do you think that the in your experience the female route setters are so good?
Do you know, honestly, and
Yeah,
this is,
please, honestly.
I'm gonna get told off for someone's gonna
It's all
tell me
right.
off for this, but I think they have less ego.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
agree.
I think I've met lots of male route setters, not everyone, of course,
Yeah,
but lots of male route setters who have like incredible egos,
yeah,
and I think that it's because when you're a route setter, and it's the personal opinion, but you're kind of king of the wall or queen of the wall, depending on whether you're a girl or a guy. But like you kind of like have the power of the drill to like kind of change anything, and you set these routes, and you set the grades. And I think for a lot of people, it goes to their head. I've met so many male route setters in particular who are just like really really big egos, and girls, the girls I've met who are incredible route setters don't tend to have that, and
yeah,
they can reflect on things better. They don't tend to like set routes that have like, I don't know, they can kind of abstain on the wall from just like getting harder and harder and harder and harder, and making bigger moves and wilder sequences.
yeah,
Um, they can, and I don't know, maybe like they just yeah, I don't know what it is necessarily, but they seem to be able to refrain from that sort of thing.
yeah,
Um, and like when I climb Jess's routes at Rathel, they're always phenomenal. And I've climbed in walls all over the country, all over the world, and I think they stand up to those.
Yeah, I think that I guess my experience of men generally, not just in climbing, but I think men generally is that men tend to have big or bigger egos and potentially find it hard to maybe reflect objectively on things
Hmm.
because ego comes into play. My experience is that women generally, and I'm generalizing, is that don't have egos like men
Hmm.
do and are able to kind of reflect and put stuff aside. Um, Maybe it's because they're wired differently. Um, Female climbers generally are more technical than men. Men tend to use muscle mass, and maybe male route setters might put in like more powerful moves, more muscle moves, whereas women might have more of a leaning towards like super technical climbing, especially when I've climbed, and this is only my limited experience. When I've climbed some of Emma's routes, they are hard, um, but it's so technical,
Hmm.
and I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. On the point about ego, I guess, it could be just thinking about it, it could be, I mean, like we live in a patriarchal society, less I think social development of boys versus girls at a young age,
Yeah.
um, probably probably leans into that, boys are tend to given more of those opportunities, whereas girls probably have to work harder for it, and as a result, perhaps, that ego doesn't kind of like come into play as much.
Yeah. And I think as boys and men, we tend to compete with one another all the time.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
definitely climb with my mates, and although it starts friendly, and it is always friendly, but we're still competing with each other.
I completely agree, man. Listen, on the moon board at the moment, I was texting my mate last night. I was like, yeah, like what problems have you done recently? And I'm gonna try and do them, like
Yeah, yeah,
do the faster than you.
yeah,
And it's all a good laugh, But I really enjoy that competitive,
yeah,
spirit, and it's all in good fun, but it's still there.
yeah. It doesn't go away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, right. Next couple of questions. There's so yeah, you took. I think I was going through one of your videos, and you mentioned which one was it? You were on a boat. You went somewhere to an unclimbed piece of rock, and I think something you said was you talk about nerves and dreading the build up before a climb.
Mhm.
So talk me through that.
So I think this was St. Kilda. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah, St Kilda's the most remote islands in the British Isles. They have been explored for climbing little bits throughout the years, but not very extensively. I think Chris Bonington and Pete Willens did a trip in the 60s. Then for a while, climbing was banned, and there's been maybe like a handful of climbing trips out there by various other groups over the last sort of 10 or 15 years. But I think I've kind of like really put the sort of, I think I'm going back for my third trip actually this September. And the stuff I see out there is as good as you can get anywhere in the UK, and it's in a remote setting, and it's untouched, and it's wild. And it's really what I really love about climbing
yeah,
out there. The wall, the climb in particular, I think you're talking about, me and my mate Will Burkett, it was on our second trip to St Kilda. And the first trip, it was very much exploratory, just seeing what's out there.
yeah,
And on that trip, we spotted this absolutely incredible 200-meter overhanging sea cliff on the Isle of Soay, which is the westernmost isle of St Kilda,
yeah,
which is the westernmost isle of the British Isles. It's literally as far west as you can possibly go before reaching North America.
yeah,
And on the very westernmost tip of this island is this incredible overhang. If it was anywhere else in the UK, if it was like on the mainland, it would have hundreds of routes all over it.
Yeah.
It would be it would be up there with one of the great rock faces of of our country.
Yeah.
Like up there with Cloggy or any of these other amazing walls, and you get in the
Yeah.
lakes or in Scotland. But because it's on such a remote island, and you could only get there by sailboat, and you can only get there by sailboat, but you've also got to have a, a, a captain, a skipper, willing to kind of take you in on a little rubber rib and get you close to the wall
Yeah.
in often quite turbulent waters in order for you to jump off onto the rock. Because the
Yeah.
thing about this island is it's not like there's no easy way of getting onto it. It's rock going straight into the sea the entire way around the island.
Yeah.
And so we spotted this wall, and I've been thinking for a whole year about climbing it. I had a high definition image of it, and I'd been studying the lines on the photo in the hope that I could find the easiest way up the wall. And when basically we arrived there, and we were kind of coming down onto the rock face, and yeah, the nerves that I had there were looking up at it. It was so much steeper than I had imagined. I mean, at the start, it was like slightly overhanging, and then it tipped out to probably 30 degrees overhanging, 35 degrees at the steepest part.
Yeah.
Really, really steep. And it kind of barrels over the sea and then kind of comes up. And it's against 200 meters. It's not small. When you commit to something like this in terrain that's completely unknown, you really are questing into unknown territory. You're not sure, if you're going to be able to climb through the next section. You get to a
Yeah.
certain point, and you look down and you realize, God, to get off this thing is actually going to be a hell of a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Um, and at the bottom, I was looking up at it, and I was foreseeing everything. I was foreseeing us getting stuck. I was foreseeing us unable to get off the wall. I was foreseeing us unable to go higher. And I was like, I was my friend Will, and I was like, I'm definitely the leader here. Like
Yeah.
Will's a good climber, but I'm the one that's gonna have to get us up this thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, that then I started to feel kind of the anxiety just sort of like start there.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you deal with that level of anxiety? Because I guess you've been thinking about it for a year, and then I guess there's the excitement and then the anxiety and the remoteness, and I guess all the weight is on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is and it isn't, like I'm still there with Will, and I think that's maybe one of the things that's really important about climbing. I've always felt it's really important about climbing is having a good partner.
Yeah.
For me, it's not necessarily having a partner who's like the best climber in the world or who matches you in terms of climbing ability,
Yeah.
but somebody who you trust, somebody who you together you'll laugh through the hard times. That's really important for me because and I wanna feel relaxed. That was what was really important about me and Alex's partnership on the Long Hope was, at the base of the route, you know, we looked up, the base of the crux pitch, when we were knackered, we looked up and went, well, it's just a practice run, isn't it? And we looked at each other and like started laughing. It was like we know it's not a practice run. We can just have a laugh about it. Let's
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
Equally like yeah, I did a big route on Pabe last year as well. The Great Arch, second ascent of that, and my mate Jamie, we were just laughing the whole way up it, even though it's a big, scary sea cliff, and we got to the crux pitch and we've got to really try hard now. We're still enjoying ourselves. And then for the St Kilda trip, again, me and Will, we were laughing the whole way up. But there was a point when I pulled off a rock and literally landed on Will's head. And after I was like sure he hadn't got concussion, um, we just started laughing, and like, and I think that's it, man. Like, I I do think I can, with the anxiety sort of stuff, there's obvious that anxiousness, and uncertainty going into these big things. And I think I am quite good at compartmentalizing it. I'm like good at right, okay, this is I've got to be serious about this. I've got to get on with this.
Yeah.
It's important. Again, just go back to that. Just try your hardest. This will be fine. We'll deal with whatever comes. And then having that partner who also shares that load with you, and you can laugh about it. Laugh through like some of the scary sections, and then everything kind of like all the anxiety kind of disappears, and you realize you just two mates on a wall having fun.
Yeah. I guess it's really important, isn't it, to have a good B-day partner, a good climbing partner. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I do remember one thing. I think that at the start of the climb, at the start of that wall, I was feeling quite nervous. And Will said, well, do you want to go first? And I actually just said to him, I was like, actually, honestly, would you just take the first pitch? I was like, I just need a bit of time. And he was like, yeah, sure, man, no worries.
Yeah.
And he's happy to do that. And he found it hard. It was tough. And I seconded him, and it was pumpy. But he got us to the first belay, and I think he got flash pumped because after that he was like, "Do you mind just climbing to the top?" And I was like, "Yeah, mate, no worries." And I think
Yeah.
like I literally led us I think I led us all the way up to the very top of the wall, but there was this one sort of like pitch that was kind of like essentially like a traverse walk on the
Yeah.
side, and I went, "It's your lead now." Take us to the summit. So he did the first and the last one.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So any other ways apart from like joking and laughing, how other ways that you relax in stressful situations?
Um,
I can name one.
Eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I always have lots of really nice snacks with me.
Yeah.
I like I love chocolate,
Yeah.
and I often carry these little protein flapjacks. A friend of mine in Glasgow has a company, Spartan Protein, and I'm very conscious about nutrition. I like the idea of having like protein throughout the day at various points. So he makes these little flapjacks, which are lovely, and he's got this cacao and nut butter one, which I just honestly it's like so tasty. And
Okay.
I just have one in my pocket, and when I get to the belay, I'll just like nibble away at my
Yeah.
at my flapjack.
Yeah.
And or before a scary lead, 100% get out like something sweet and nice just to nibble on.
Yeah.
And that really helps for sure.
Morale booster. A morale
What's that, sir?
booster and a little
Oh, morale
reward
booster. Yeah,
and a
yeah,
little
definitely.
reward. Yeah. Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, morale booster. Just agreeing with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. Yeah. So do you think that the amount of stress that you experienced climbing Long Hope, did that help you with I guess some of your more recent ascents like St Kilda, etc.?
Yeah, I mean they're all kind of different, but they of course build on each other. I've always felt that in climbing, it's very much there's not like an ultimate goal. You're just kind of like going from one thing to the next,
Yeah.
building on the skills that you learned from the last thing,
Yeah.
in the hope that the next thing, you're a bit more prepared, or you can build up something harder, or something more engaging or more challenging in a bit different ways. The long hope. The good thing about the long hope was it was a known quantity. you
Yeah.
know, we I'd obviously had done it, tried it the previous year, so I kind of knew the bottom, what to expect. The top crux, we worked it, we head pointed it, we practiced it, on a fixed line, so that when we actually got there, all we had to do was, just engage, just do what we've talked about, do what we've practiced,
Yeah.
and commit, and that's it. And then, as I said before, just leave everything on the wall. With something like St Kilda, you're going into unknown territory. It's on site. It's
Yeah.
ground up or
Yeah.
sea up, you could say.
Yeah.
And actually, that is much harder than doing something that you have already practiced. It's you know I actually listened to your calf podcast, and I really enjoyed that. And Calf, James McCaffrey, he's always been someone I've really looked up to in climbing, namely because of his on-site trad climbing.
Yeah.
Because he's had a phenomenal mindset for doing hard climbing in often bold terrain when you just you don't know what's coming next, And overcoming the unknown, I think, is the hardest thing to do in climbing.
Yeah.
And you know, you could argue like, yeah, Font 9A is really hard. Of course, it's hard. You could argue, like climbing 9C is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, on-sitting hard sport routes is really hard. They're all hard, but I honestly believe that the hardest thing to do is on-sitting hard trad at your limit
Yeah.
because it brings so many more things. It requires so many more skill sets,
Yeah.
and and so yeah, like when I went to St Kilda on that trip, I will be honest, I perhaps wasn't as prepared for that sort of experience as I could have been. I hadn't been doing very much on-site climbing, and so I wasn't really in the right frame of mind for it. And it did actually like it did speak to me. I kind of realized I was like, no, you need to kind of sort out this side of your climbing a bit more now, and
Yeah.
and that's actually ultimately what led me into having the last sort of year I've put into climbing is actually mostly been on site trad
Okay.
because I just got really psyched on it. I got, you know what, I just want to go and do lots of that and practice that and see if I can improve on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that like you say, that requires a completely different skill set because you haven't practiced the moves, you don't know what's coming, you don't know what gear you're going to need, you don't know what the moves are going to be like, and I guess although the climbing grade might be slightly below your complete physical ability, you need to have, I guess, some processing power in your brain to be able to, I guess, figure out what gear to place, where to possibly go. Um, yeah, and and making good decisions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it draws from all the skills you learn in climbing, whether that's bouldering, sport climbing, indoor climbing, all the tactics you've learned, uh, red pointing, on sighting, and then also bringing in, of course, the as you said, like the gear placement side of things, being able to place gear uh, relatively quickly, spot gear, and that's maybe one of the things actually that maybe does separate trad climbing on site from head point is that any sport climber can go and put a top rope down a hard trad route, figure out the gear,
Yeah,
practice the moves, and execute next. Go and do it.
yeah,
And I know this because I used to do it loads. I still do it loads. It's very easy to do. It's if you're like an 8C climber or an 8B climber, and you go and like I don't know, like an E9 or an E8, I mean, the max it's great it's going to be is 8B, absolute max, and that's like the upper end. But more often than not, they're going to be like 7C,
yeah,
or 8A,
yeah,
um, or even easier than that. And realistically, that's not hard climbing, so you're probably not going to fall off. So if you have that in your head, I'm not going to fall off. I'm just going to pull hard, get to the top of this thing,
yeah,
and do everything that I've already done. I mean, it's still an awesome experience,
yeah,
but when you do it on site, that requires you having put a lot of time into that traditional climbing development. You have to have built up through the grades. You have to have practiced placing loads of gear.
yeah,
Practice placing RPs. Practice. Offset cams or whatever. Like having used all the different gear to kind of like figure out it. I realized that for a long time on-sighting for me, I could on-site E5 usually pretty comfortably.
yeah,
Um, Sometimes obviously the odd E5 I'd get like have a bit of a moment. E6 I had on-sighted like a handful of E6s, but not extensively.
yeah,
And I was always nervous going up to on-sighting E6s.
yeah,
E6 was just a grade that I was always kind of like, oh God, here we go. The idea of on-sighting, I mean, I had on-sighted one E7, but it was very sporty.
yeah,
And the idea of going and on-sighting E7 is just like showing up a crag and on-sighting E7. I just didn't come into my frame of reference. I was like, there's just I just don't know what that requires. And so this last year, I was like, right, let's see if I can turn the on-site game on.
Yeah.
And got to a point where, but like got to a point where basically I was on-setting every E6 I touched, and just on-setting E6 was just like, yeah, it's just what I do, and that was really cool. I was like, this is brilliant. And then by the end, um, it was awesome. I was showing up at Crags and going, where's the E7? And
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, that's the E7. All right, cool. Let's give that a shot,
Yeah.
And it was so freeing and liberating just to be like showing up at Crag and feeling like, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I can just try anything.
Yeah.
And of course you do so much more climbing because you're just going out on sighting. Of course you're taking falls, you're taking big falls, but it's all fine.
Yeah.
And lastly, something which I realize as well, and is that you in on-site trad, you don't try harder in any other aspect of climbing than in on-site trad. I've never tried harder, like as in getting to that point where you're like just pulling really hard. You're like you're struggling to hold on. You're fiddling in gear, and you're just desperately going up a bit harder, down climbing, trying to shake out a bit more, going up again. Like in sport, you try really hard and then it's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
In bouldering, you try really hard and then it's over. In
Yeah.
trad, you try really hard and it's still on.
Yeah.
You try really hard and it's still on. And
Yeah.
you hang on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, absolutely box out your nut,
Yeah.
just keep on going, and you hang in there to the point where you either get it or you don't. But and again, this is like I've kind of come to this terms with this idea of challenge that I think a lot of climbers are maybe kind of maybe not slightly misunderstood. I think a lot of everyone's after after a challenge. Not everyone, but a lot of climbers who operate at the higher grades, they're after a challenge. That's why they like it.
Yeah.
They like that sense of overcoming something hard,
Yeah.
that sense of feeling challenged. But when they go trad climbing, they go, oh, it's easy, So
Yeah.
it's boring. I want to just pull the hardest I can pull. But funnily enough, I don't think I've ever pulled harder than when I've been on site trad climbing
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're having to push hard,
Yeah.
It's a slightly different element, but in terms of drawing on everything, all the skill sets that it takes to be a good climber, there's nothing that does it quite like on-site trad.
Yeah. I guess it's so much more of an intense experience on-site trad climbing,
Yeah.
physically and mentally, because I guess you get to the bottom of a climb and you're slightly anxious and you're having to deal with the anxiety of the unknown, which is I guess it's going to be more intense than knowing what moves and what gear that are to come, and having the confidence to then be able to do the moves, but you're starting something and you have no information, and I guess that level of intensity is going to be far deeper and more intense than it would be kind of knowing what's to come. And I guess you've got to make good decisions on the fly, making sure that you're going to be safe and figuring out, I guess, staying on the wall, that there's going to be sections where you can't fall off. And then you just obviously can't because you just yeah, because the consequences might be injury or death potentially. And I guess those experiences, I guess, are going to be far more intense than having head pointed a route.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the bottom line is though, with on-site trad, you never have to do anything,
Yeah,
It's like, you know, you take it at your own pace. You know, no one's standing at the bottom of the route with a pike forcing
yeah,
you up the wall.
yeah,
You can come down to the ground. You can abseil off a piece. If you get a bit like, oh, this is actually a bit too much,
yeah,
you can just say take and on a piece and just like ab off. Or you can down climb. I spend when I'm on sit trad climbing, it's not like going up, 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 up. It's going up then down, and
yeah,
then up a little bit further, then down,
yeah,
up a little bit further, then down to the ground.
yeah,
Just like rest. Like,
yeah,
oh man, I need half an hour.
yeah,
Like it's and and I think like it's okay for that to be the case. That is like part of the fun of it, you know.
Yeah.
And as you do more of that, you learn more what you're capable of doing. You become more comfortable in quite bold, scenarios. And also, you don't actually have to choose climbs which are really, really, really bold, you
Yeah.
know? Like, everyone's got their things. Like Franco Cookson loves doing the like scary death routes. I'm not particularly like all about doing the scary death routes,
Yeah.
especially on sighting them. I'm quite keen to do the ones that are like kind of like maybe moderate to safe, you know?
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to try and on-site E7, I have on-sighted very bold, I've had on-sighted a couple of very bold E7s, but, would I have died if I fell off them? No, no, definitely not, you know? Um, if the ones that I tend to do well on are the ones where they're kind of more in that sort of like upper end of the sort of like technical grade E7s, where they're kind of like they're probably something like 7C, 7C plus
Yeah.
sport grade,
Yeah.
and you're having to like you know place place gear as you go, and you know that it's probably all going to be okay, but
Yeah.
there's a higher chance of falling off.
Yeah. Yeah. I like those routes too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Safe routes. Yeah. I don't like
yeah.
death routes. Yeah. I don't
Well,
want
that
to.
was it.
I like climbing too much. I don't like the idea of getting injured.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same. I mean, equally, I mean, like with head pointing, when things are, when you work a route, you practice a climb, and you understand every aspect of it. I can definitely do boulders, a lot bolder stuff then. Probably the boldest thing I've ever done, definitely like the most intense mental experience was actually this last winter. I had an injury, a TFC injury in my wrist, which is a bit of a nightmare. And basically meant
Is
like,
that the side of the wrist there?
yeah, exactly, yeah. I got it when I was doing a speaking tour, and I was just trying to like juggle training and driving and like long and late evenings, um, and ultimately one day I just noticed that my wrist was sore, and it lasted all winter. They can be very bad. They can plague people for decades. I've got a friend who's had it for like 20 years,
Yeah.
but I think if you kind of like nip them early. I went to Huffy, Huffy, the absolute legend that he is, physio, and he sorted me out.
Okay.
But anyway, like I realized that this winter it was very much rehab, and but I still wanted to have a challenge. I was wanted to challenge myself in climbing,
Yeah.
so I just found like loads of really techie slabs, and there's a place in Northumberland, south of Edinburgh. It's about an hour and a half from my home. It's very close to my heart. It's a crowd called Back Bowden Doors. If you've ever
Yeah.
been there, it's amazing sandstone, and there's a slab there that when I was 16 with a friend Ali Swinton, we both soloed on the verge, which is the E4 on the right,
Yeah.
and then years later I attempted the E6 to the left, peak technique, ended up falling, decking from like 10, 12 meters. It's very, really, really serious route, and all the gear ripped. But had an experience on that, and ended up coming back a couple of years later, leading it successfully.
Yeah.
But this winter, what I wanted to do was I wanted to solo peak technique, but there was also a harder route, probably definitely the hardest slab on the entire wall. It started on the left-hand side of the slab and traverses diagonally up and right,
Yeah.
and it was what was it called again?
Rival.
Yeah, Dead on Arrival. Dead on Arrival.
Yeah.
That's it. So, I mean, what was interesting about this one was the gear at the bottom left. I mean, as soon as you're in the middle of the wall, you're going to take a pendulum, and
Yeah.
it's going to be very serious. So I decided to approach it like a high ball,
Yeah.
but it's definitely the highest high ball I've ever done. I mean, I think at the point you're at the top, you're nearing the top, like a fall is going to be so serious. You can't fall off that slab uh, in a comfortable way. You're,
Yeah.
you're definitely going to fall off bad. Um, so So, when I was preparing for that, I practiced the sequence. And again, what's beautiful about this wall is there's no holds. It's this incredible slab of sandstone, and there's no handholds, there's no footholds. Everything is just a smear. And if there is something you're standing on, because there is a sequence, it's a slight ripple in the rock. It's just the ever so subtle sort of deviation in the sandstone.
Yeah.
And there's nothing good on the entire slab. So
Yeah.
when you're smearing through your feet, you can't lean too much into the wall. You've got to keep yourself out from the wall. You've got to lean back. You've got to trust in the feet. You've got to keep your heels down and trust that the rubber stays in contact with the rock.
Yeah.
And essentially, what I've always said is just when you climb it, you have to give yourself to the climb,
Yeah.
commit entirely to it. Because if you falter, if you allow any stray thought to think, "Oh no, this I don't trust this,"
Yeah.
then 100% you're off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that was what was beautiful about climbing that was kind of finding a way to kind of get into that headspace and commit to a climb like that and
Yeah.
succeed at it.
Yeah. So for all the listeners out there, the Dead on Arrival. So I think it's a 5 to 6 meter high, kind of fairly vert wall that then turns into a 5, 6 meter slab on top. Is
Hmm.
that about right?
Yeah, yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've got a video on your YouTube channel. I thought it was quite a good video, and man, looking at the footholds that you're using, it just looks like there's nothing there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, there really isn't. And I mean, the good thing about sandstone is obviously it's granular, so friction tends to be, pretty good when you trust it.
yeah,
Problem happens when you don't trust it.
yeah,
So you've really got to kind of like relax, stay in a relaxed state, and climb like that. I've actually got loads of footage from that climb, and I'm gonna make like a little video of how to climb friction slabs
yeah,
for my
yeah,
YouTube channel at some point. I need to get around to doing it, but um,
yeah,
but yeah, it's a wonderful style of climbing, especially if you're injured, in your fingers or your hands or your wrist or anything upper body, because you can just do it as much as you want, and it's just a wonderful way to move on the wall.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a real skill to climb slab, and I think. Well, speaking to mates who are really into like different types of shoes, I guess you have different types of shoes for different styles of climbing, and I guess you're going to use maybe a particular type of shoe with a certain rubber that might work better on slabs, and yeah, I think there's real skill because I think my slab climbing isn't that great, um, and yeah, trusting feet on nothing. Sandstone, like in my head, I guess it's got to be clean, right? Because the granular stuff, even if like little bits come off, you're off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I think with the Northumberland sandstone, it's pretty soft. So prior to actually climbing it, I would just go and over the footholds, I would just brush a little bit,
Yeah,
just to get any of the, especially if it has if no one's been on it and it has rained in like the period between your last attempt on it, um, and that attempt, you'd probably want to definitely go through it because the rain kind of softens the rock, and then when it dries, the grains just become a bit more displaced and loose.
yeah,
So you just need to go there and brush the footholds just once or twice,
yeah,
just to kind of remove any of that excess grain,
yeah,
and then it's fine and it's golden. It's not like gritstone. Gritstone I don't think it tends to be very granular at all, does it? I guess you can get patches of gritstone that make it softer.
yeah. Well, it does. I think stuff in the peaks does get. I think with moisture, it does release some.
Does it?
Yeah, a little bit of grit, like a little bit of sandy stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't climb a lot on gritstone, but yeah, I mean, the sandstone definitely is like that. In terms of your footwork, what's interesting, I think what a lot of people forget about is actually toes. Your toe strength is a thing,
yeah,
like actually developing the strength through your feet. And I think if you climb a lot with very stiff shoes, which you do find like, definitely heavier guys, like I'm 84 kilos, so I do like a stiff shoe. I had to learn how
How
to
much
climb
do
in
you weigh?
softer shoes. 84?
84.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, like that random question. How tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot. Okay, right. Okay. I'm 6'2" and I'm 82, 83. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I'm a big boy.
yeah. Well, yeah. 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 So, yeah. So in your videos, please don't take it personally. Your videos, you seem smaller.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm 6 foot. I'm quite
Okay.
tall, and I think like I do have quite like a relatively gaunt face, which gives off the impression I'm skinnier than I am.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Eastern European lineage, with high cheekbones.
Yeah. Okay. So you're quite
But
heavy for a climber, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's why I really struggle on like really fingery holds on overhanging walls. I'm good on fingery holds on vertical walls. That's because I'm really good on my feet and I've got good hip flexibility. I
Yeah.
get a lot of weight through my feet. As
Yeah.
soon as things get steep and on small holds, again, like a moon board,
Yeah.
or just any boards in general, I really struggle, which is why I do it because I really see the gains from it.
Yeah.
I feel like if when I get stronger in that area, it actually everything else just goes up with it,
Yeah.
um, because it's such a weakness of my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I was saying about footwork is I think a lot of people forget that foot strength is a thing,
Yeah.
and especially a lot of uh, a lot of guys who like stiff shoes, because they're using the stiff shoes, they don't actually get strong feet. And as a result, it kind of compounds this issue where their feet are relatively weak, so they need stiffer shoes to stand on smaller feet. When actually, if you get stronger toes, you can get away with softer shoes, and you can actually get more sensitivity through the foot and
Yeah.
more ability to climb harder on worse feet.
Yeah.
Obviously, like it's a sliding scale,
Yeah.
and still I find like for certain types of footholds, I'll need a stiffer boot, but I definitely see I massively see the importance of learning to climb in softer shoes,
Yeah.
even if it's like a just like for me at a time, I think when I was first got sponsored by Scarpa actually, this is like 10 years ago. Um, they had a whole line of soft shoes, and I didn't wear soft shoes at the time, but I committed to it because I realized it was important. I needed to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to like just buy some soft shoes and learn climb slabs in soft shoes, and learn how to use them. I mean, obviously not all slabs, like slate slabs. 100%, I'd be going for stiff shoes because standing on little edges on slate, that's a different thing altogether. Um, but yeah, uh, for this particular route, for the sandstone slab, the friction slab, climbing that with stiff shoes would be absolutely so stupid.
Yeah.
And yet, when I climbed peak technique the first time, I did it years and years and years before. That's exactly what I did it in stiff shoes because I didn't know how to I didn't know how to use my feet properly.
Yeah.
And peak technique is E6. It's got more footholds than definitely it has more footholds than the other one I did, Dead on Arrival, because it gets much more attention and the sandstone over time has worn it away slightly.
Yeah.
So you kind of just got away with it. But in I actually filmed myself trying Dead on Arrival in stiff shoes just so that I could have footage of how bad it is, how much
Yeah.
harder it is,
Yeah.
for to be able to show people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I find myself, I climb a lot in soft shoes generally. Um, I found myself like at times curling my toes on
Mhm.
little holds. I think even I was climbing with a friend. This was indoors. I think like I don't know anything about, and I should have researched that then, but um, I remember like curling my big toe on something and pulling really hard, and then a pain kicked in. And I think like as you've got pulleys in your fingers. I think you've got pulleys in your toes too. And I think I might have like partially torn a pulley in one of my toes.
Yeah, that is 100% the case. Was it Charles Albert? He had an A2 pulley in his one of his toes.
Right, okay. Yeah.
A2 pulley injury, and it does happen. But think your fingers and your toes are essentially the same thing. And when if you think about it, you know how you get like some shoes with high toe boxes,
Yeah.
and that's so your toes are curled up.
Yeah.
The reason for that is it's essentially like a crimp. You know, you're
Yeah.
crimping your toes. You're creating, you're allowing your foot to be shorter,
Yeah.
so you can use a softer boot, but retain some sense of rigidity.
Yeah.
So again, just think of it like crimping.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah. So maybe somebody needs to come up with a toe board instead of a
Well,
finger.
they have not a yeah, they have. There's a guy in America who has like a little, I don't know, it's some sort of little triangular like plastic widget that he was selling online, saying it's going to improve everyone's footwork. And I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think honestly the best way to get stronger toes really is just to climb with soft shoes
Yeah.
and practice on slabs, and I mean, well, on all rock types, not all, on all angles, because the way your toes function on a climbing wall is so different depending on whether you're on a slab or on an overhang. One thing that I'm really good at as well, and again, this comes from not being particularly strong in the upper body or the fingers,
Yeah.
is getting a lot of weight and a lot of pressure through my feet. So on overhangs, I'm constantly doing exactly what you're saying, like curling my toes around footholds, pulling in, and really getting a lot of connection through my feet. Um, Again, you reflect on like people training on boards. You see a lot of really strong climbers who just jump between holds. There's a bit of a curse that comes from being strong in that you can get away with that,
Yeah.
and actually it is a curse because it's really hard to overcome that
Yeah.
when you're relatively weak and you're trying to climb harder stuff, and you can't get away with that, you're forced to keep your feet on. So you
Yeah.
end up developing very good technique in order to stay on the wall. And that's why that when you do get stronger, everything else goes up. The strong guys and girls who just jump around. The unfortunate thing for them is, um, they can get often they find like they get stronger and stronger and stronger, but the grade doesn't really improve that much. I remember like Alien Rock back in the day, everyone was jumping around, pulling really hard, and I got the sense that they were actually just, when they got stronger, they were just pulling harder on the same holds.
Yeah.
Um, like they just pull harder,
Yeah.
um, and it didn't actually help them much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think, yeah. Look forward to that video. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the podcast, having a chat with Robbie. Robbie's very chatty. He's got some great stories to tell, and part two will be released next week. If you have any suggested topics that you'd like us to talk about, if you have any suggestions on who you'd like us to interview, feel free to contact us on social media or send us an email, and we'll see you soon. Until next time.